Hello everybody, San here, engineer, MBA, and investor. And in today's video, I want to talk about why some of the folks in the biotech space, some of the really known figures in the investing world, are sort of reluctant to use the word CRISPR. And I would want to push back on just the idea that, a lot of them are just reluctant to use the word CRISPR. And I want to play this clip here and talk about why I'm even making this video and exploring why it's important for us to raise awareness about CRISPR as a whole, right? So let's play this video. Of course, this is David Friedberg, one of the billionaires in the podcast of All In podcast with, of course, Chamath Friedberg, David Sachs, and Jason Calacanis, and basically billionaires talking about technology, investing, and so on, which we've referenced in the past. And in fact, Chamath actually last week covered the news of Alisa, 13 years old girl in the UK that is potentially cancer-free due to CRISPR and base editing specifically. But let's play this clip. And of course, this is Friedberg at the CES 2023 panel with United Nations executive. So let's go ahead and play it.
Because what we're seeing is that these specific gene editing tools are absolutely transforming farmers' yield potential and the environmental and sustainability benefits available in agriculture around the world, and European farmers are being left out. They've overturned that, and now non-GMO, which means you're not bringing in non-native DNA into the organism, but just changing the genome of an organism around and editing it to turn stuff on and off, is going to be allowed, it's going to become mainstay. And it is already being done and rewriting kind of a lot of agriculture. So this is happening as the understanding kind of reaches out. Kenya, Nigeria, these African nations are starting to reverse course on their gene editing bans. So it is a matter of time, but we have a lot of education and understanding here.
So that's what I wanted to boil this video down. So first of all, I think David Friedberg did a great job summarizing the potential of agriculture when it comes to genome editing. But notice that he always uses the word, genome editing, which is fine. I mean, it's a generic term, right? Don't get me wrong. It is the right term to use because CRISPR is ultimately genome editing. But the reality is, like I made in yesterday's video about, the failure of Graphite Bio, is that CRISPR is one of the tools in the toolkit of genome editing. Right, so genome editing as a whole, that's a toolkit. And then you have a bunch of tools in this toolkit. And of course, one of the tools is CRISPR. And you can obviously go down the rabbit hole saying CRISPR-Cas9, CRISPR-Cas12. In fact, there was a paper from Dr. Doudna and her team just recently about Cas12a. But anyways, the point here I'm making is that what's happening here is a lot of folks in this investing world, in people that are really well known, like Friedberg, they're trying to raise awareness on genome editing, which is great. And I think it's obviously a lot better than not saying anything at all. But I would, promote the idea that you should basically call out the technology being used. And there are reasons why they would not want to do that. But the reason why I think it's important is because, like I said, talking about the toolkit is one thing, but you want to talk about the tool specifically because obviously there are other players watching this conference. Obviously, there are companies, invited to these types of conferences. The UN is watching, a bunch of executives around the world, people that really have no idea about what biotech is. And when you think about genome editing, you're thinking about genome editing, right? You're not talking about CRISPR. But if you use the word CRISPR, that gets them to the rabbit hole of Googling the word CRISPR, going in that rabbit hole. I think a lot of us investors, this is literally what happened with us. We saw CRISPR in Reddit, we saw CRISPR in Twitter, we saw CRISPR in YouTube. And then we start going that rabbit hole, understanding what is CRISPR. Okay, it's a form of genome editing. What is CRISPR-Cas9? What is the second generation of CRISPR? Even third generation of CRISPR. But you had to use the word CRISPR, or at least listen to it, before going down that path. And what's happening here is, and again, now I want to take Friedberg's side here. I understand why he would not want to use the word CRISPR in this type of conference, because he's sort of talking about the general idea, which is true. Like, there's nothing wrong. I 100% agree with what he's saying. I'm just saying that I think it should be An additional step should be done here, additional effort to actually call out the technology, because it is CRISPR in this case. It is CRISPR making a lot of these happen across the regions around the world. We know this for a fact. Agriculture and CRISPR fits like gloves, right? It's perfect. It's a perfect fit. It's basically the technology, the tool that should be used across the regions around the world, assuming there's a fit, of course, and assuming there is a need. Like he just mentioned a couple of regions in Africa. I would argue this could fit in literally every region around the world, to genome editing specifically with CRISPR. Again, I want to, preface by saying that I really agree with Freeberg, everything he said, and I think it's an amazing type of exposure about genome editing. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's sort of it's sort of unfortunate that a lot of these folks sort of are reluctant to use the word CRISPR because they don't want to favor a specific technology. I think as you grow successful, especially when you have a lot to lose and obviously you're a billionaire or whatnot, and you have lots of followers, lots of exposure in the media. You always want to avoid going into specifics. You always want to talk about generic terms, right? This is what happened in technology and software tech early on in the 2000s, right? People would talk about the internet, right? They would talk about e-commerce. They would talk about internet. They would be really, really reluctant to talk about specific websites, specific businesses, especially after the dot-com boom, right? It's the same thing happening here in this CRISPR space. People are reluctant to use CRISPR because they're not really, 100% sure if CRISPR is really going to be the tool to be used in the upcoming years and years. Because you got to remember, these type of videos, these types of conferences will be watched in 2024, in 2026, 2030, 2035. It's going to be there forever, right? So these guys have to be careful as they're using specifics. But my argument to that is they're actually not doing a favor to the world, because you want to shine light on the specific tool. Talking about the internet as a whole would not get you exposure about, PayPal. It won't get you exposure about eBay at the time. It won't get you exposure about the ways of doing business in Amazon, right? So same thing here. Talking about genome as a whole will not get you exposure to CRISPR. But again, it is better than nothing, but that's my thought. I just watched this video today. I was like, you know what? Let's make a video on this, because I've noticed this happening a lot more than often, where a lot of these folks talk about genome editing as opposed to just calling out the tool itself. And I think here in this channel, we call out the exact tool the way it is, right? CRISPR was the reason why Elisa, 13 years old girl in UK, is potentially cured from cancer. CRISPR is the reason why. CRISPR is the program that led that to happen. Whether or not these figures use the word or not, I think it's just a matter of time. I think once you have the FDA-approved drug from CTX1, I think you'll be seeing the word thrown out a lot more, as opposed to being a really niche topic in specific segments of interviews or podcasts. So I'll end this video like this, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you found value. Like this video if you found value, of course. And I'll see you guys in the next video on Sunday. Thank you so much, guys. And I wish you a happy Saturday and a beautiful weekend. Thank you.